Hey, how's it going everyone? Paul here from BikeNerds coming at you guys with another episode. And as you can tell by the intro, it is wintertime here in Michigan, which means it is officially fat bike season. Now, don't get me wrong, fat bikes are awesome during any season, but when it comes to snow, there's only one way to go, and that is definitely fat bikes. So I picked this one up here off of Marketplace for really cheap, and as with any new bike to me, I like to go through it, make sure everything's good and tight, give it a good tune-up, make sure everything's good to go with it. And I already noticed a couple of things, issues that need to be addressed. Mainly small things like some improperly routed cables. It's got these disgusting, horrible pedals on it. Those have definitely got to go. The headset up here feels a little bit loose. It's dirty, needs some love. So in this video, I figured we could go through it, clean it up, tune it up, get her going, and have some wintertime fun on the trail with this thing. So I guess with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so before we get started, let's go ahead and check this thing out real quick. Now, it's made by a company called Framed, and this is a Minnesota 1.0. Now, unfortunately, the company is no longer in existence, but when they were around, I would see these things all over the place. Now, these are kind of marketed and advertised as like a mid-tier spec bike, you know, a couple steps above your department store. Heavy steel like your Mongoose Dolomites and some of the other brands. I can't think of the other ones right now, but this one's 6061 aluminum. It's got a 1x9 drivetrain by SRAM. You know, it's got windowed aluminum wheels, so they're not super heavy. Avid BB mechanical brakes. You know, just overall decent quality bike. This one has a couple of issues, as I mentioned. Like I said, it's got this weird routed cable, which thus in turn makes this rear brake feel terrible. And like I said, the headset's a little bit loose, a little bit dirty. So like I said, it really doesn't need too much, and I don't think this thing was really ridden that much. As you can see, the tires still got the little fuzzy still on them, and the head tube badge, they still have the protective clear sticker on there that I could just peel off, but I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm gonna save that for when we get this thing all cleaned up. And anyway, yeah, like I said, it doesn't need much, and it's actually a pretty sweet bike, so I think this thing will clean up really good, and this will be a fun riding bike. So like I said, let's go ahead and get started. So if you pay attention to right here, when I hold the bike firmly and I rock the wheel back and forth, you can actually see the whole fork and the stem and everything just rocking back and forth. And if we're actually really quiet, we'll be able to hear it as well. Now this is a very loose headset, so if it were a little bit more subtle, you could actually just put your fingers up here, and if it was loose, you'd be able to feel it up here. But this is, you know, pretty loose, so it definitely needs to be addressed. So I'm gonna go ahead and, before I even wash it or do anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten that and address that real quick, because it's a very simple fix and it only takes a couple minutes. So let's do that real quick. All right, so starting off, I'm gonna go ahead and loosen these clamping bolts on the stem, which that one was already pretty darn loose. Oh, that one wasn't even tight. Another good reason why it's good to go through a bike and inspect it before you just hop on it and start riding it. Same thing with that. That was not even hand tight. So typically all you would have to do is undo these pinch bolts and tighten this down, but I want to get this cable flip-flopped over to the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull this cap off real quick. That'll allow me to pull the stem off of it, flip that cable over to the other side, and that'll eliminate two problems in one. Go ahead and pull this stem up and off. Flip that cable over where it needs to be. Everything looks okay. Tighten up your compression bolt. Before you lock everything down, take the time to line up all your spacers if stuff like that concerns you. And just go ahead, tighten your stem cap down. And when you tighten your stem cap down, what that's going to do, it's going to pull the fork, the bearings, the headset, and the spacers all together. Lock it down nice and tight. But you don't want to gorilla tighten it. You just want to snug it up good. Make sure there's no binding or resistance in your steering, which, as you can see, we got none of that going on here. Like I said, we're all good there. Once you got your compression cap tightened down, then you want to tighten your stem clamp bolts down. Again, also with your stem clamp bolts, you don't really have to gorilla tighten it. You just want to snug it up because these are aluminum parts, and typically sometimes aluminum fasteners or just, you know, mild steel fasteners, and you start gorilla tightening stuff, that's when you start breaking stuff. So now that we got that taken care of, let's go ahead and test it now. Oh, that feels solid. I don't feel any rocking or knocking or anything right now. Steering feels good. And that brake already feels a lot better just by rerouting it to where it didn't have all that resistance. Now I'm still probably going to undo it and get rid of, as you can see, it got kind of like, it's like twisted around here, which I don't know, but at least we got the headset taken care of. So I'm gonna go ahead and address another small annoyance, and that is gonna be just quickly reroute this brake cable, which is as simple as aligning the barrel adjuster, pull the lever, release, there you go, pull the cable out. Now we can undo all that nonsense. Get the cable routed the way that it needs to be. Not only does it look 10 times better, that already feels 150 million times better. As before, this cable was, you know, twisted around here like a pretzel and then wrapped around this side and then kinked this way. So now it's got a nice, just gradual swoop around. Like I said, we're on like 2 minutes in and this thing's already 10 times better. All right, so at this point we got the headset taken care of, which that was a real simple fix, and we also rerouted that brake cable, which made a huge improvement in the way this brake feels. So I think what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna take it and give it a nice bath, get it all cleaned up, and then after that we'll go through it, tune it up, then we'll lube it up, and then after that it should be all good to go. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I've relocated down into the bike dungeon. As you can see, I got the bike in the wash stand, so let's go ahead and scrub her down. Start scrubbing it down, washing it down. Some of my OG bike nerds might recognize what I'm doing here. If you're ever having to wash your bike, an old tattered up sock works great as a wash mitten. To get all the little tight spots, you don't have to worry about dropping your cloth on the ground. I'm just kind of going over it and giving it an initial wipe down. Once I do that and rinse it off, I'm going to pull the wheels off and then get a little more detailed. The bike really wasn't that dirty. Just a couple of greasy areas. Don't forget to clean underneath your seat. I find that that is an area that people very often overlook when they're washing their bikes, is they don't clean under their seat. As you would figure, it's usually very dirty from dirt being constantly flung up in that area, so just something to take note of. So we gave it a quick wipe down, and now what I'm going to do is I rinse it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull these wheels off real quick. I'm going to be careful. I don't want this thing falling off the stand here. So when you remove the rear wheel, you always want to make sure you drop whatever gear you're in down to the smallest one. That's just going to make it easier to get the back wheel off. Alright, so we got our wheels off. Since I got a quick link here, I think I'm just going to go ahead and pull this chain. Remove our chain. And that will allow us to clean it up really nice. Now with that chain out of our way, gives us a great opportunity to come in here, scrape all this funk and gunk off of our jockey wheels. Get this bottom one here. See, it's really not too bad, to be honest with you. Like I said, I really don't think this bike was ridden too much. You can tell I'm using a different rag for these particular areas just because this stuff is typically really greasy. So you don't want to take your greasy rag, clean this, and then start wiping the rest of your bike down. You want to have like a dedicated, you know, nasty rag for nasty parts and a, you know, clean rag for clean parts. Really makes sense. These actually work really good for cleaning too, and all it is just an old paintbrush that I trimmed the bristles way down. And that really allows you to get into some of these smaller like windows and areas that a brush has a hard time getting into. Let's see if we can get this smudge off of here. We might be able to, we might not. But at least try. Alright, so we're able to get that smudge off of there. Alright, so if you guys don't know what these are, on cable actuated disc brakes, what these allow you to do is kind of fine tune and adjust where the inner pad is. As you can see, it's got an arrow pointing this way clockwise, it says in, and it's got another arrow opposing, it says out. So like if you get a little bit of squeak in one way or the other, sometimes you can get in here and just give it a little half turn or whatever, a little click or two, and dial it in. So in case you guys didn't know, that's what those are for. All right, so all this looks good back here. I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a quick rinse. Now we can move on to the front. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and change this water out real quick. As you can see, this water is pretty functified. Again, I don't use anything fancy. I just use dish soap and hot water, which hot water is the key. Just kind of start from the top and work our way down. This thing's actually cleaning up pretty good. It nearly look like a brand new bike when it's done. Now again, with our bristle brush, come in here and get these calipers all cleaned up. Yeah, see, this adjuster works way better. Like I said, the front end typically doesn't get as dirty as the back. Alright, so I know we already went through this once, but now that we got some fresh water and some fresh soap, it's already been gone over once. Wouldn't hurt to go over quickly a second time. I'm not even worried about cleaning these pedals, because those are going bye-bye. I'm more of a risk taker. I like to jump and bump and ride the skinny logs and all the fun stuff. So if I feel like I need to bail off the bike, I just want to be able to bail off the bike without having to worry about my feet being stuck to it. I understand there is an advantage to them in certain environments, but I don't ever find myself in those environments. Maybe, you know, I'm never really ridden in like a gnarly area that has some nasty downhill, but I wonder if like downhill bikes would use these when you're riding a really gnarly downhill track. It seems like the bike would be just bucking you every single which way, so having your feet clipped in would help in that sense, to where you're, you know, it wouldn't buck your feet right off the pedals from like pedal kickback and stuff like that. But I digress. I'll just stick to my flats. Alright, so at this point we got the bike pretty much cleaned up and good to go. Let's go ahead and work on the wheels now. The wheels are honestly the dirtiest part, so once I get these cleaned up, this bike is going to look pretty much brand new. Let's go ahead and try and clean these tires up. Just gotta flip it around and do the other side now. These are some pretty big tires. 26 by 4, which I think is a great size for fat bikes. It's not too fat, and it's just buoyant enough to stay on top of the snow with not a lot of rolling resistance. When you get into some of the bigger tires like the 4.6s and the 4.8s, they roll, but they're slow. Alright, so we got the front wheel looking brand newish. So I'm not going to go super crazy on the cassette here. Just going to scrub it real quick and rinse it off. Alright, so the back wheel's clean, the front wheel's clean, tires turned out nice. So we're about ready to start throwing this thing back together. Alright, and we're done. Alright, so at this point we got the bike all cleaned up and it turned out really nice actually. So at this point all we got to do is get that chain cleaned up and get that chain put back on here and give it a good tune up. So let's go ahead and do that. Get a good look at it. I think it's pretty gross, but it's not horrible. All I do, dish soap again, just a kind of a more of a concentration of it. Again with the hot water. This time I'm just going to soap it and scrub it. It also helps greatly to have the entire chain laying flat versus it's, piled up on itself. Go ahead and rinse it out. And there it is. So although it might not be perfect, it's a lot better than it was. Alright, so we got our quick link here. These things are great. These little 2-piece quick links. Should always carry one of these with you when you're riding, just in case your chain decides to break on you. All right, so we got the chain on. We just got to set that quick link. There it is. Since we scrubbed and basically washed and degreased that chain, always a good idea to put some fresh chain lube on it. All right, so we got the chain back on it. Go ahead and give this thing a quick tune-up. First, I think I'm going to start by just looping up this shifter cable. Pop this cable out of its housing real quick. I like using this stuff, this tri-flow. Awesome. A little bit goes a long way. I got this cable out. I'm gonna pop this one out here. Do the same thing all through here. That feels amazing. Let's go ahead and do it up here now. That's the one good thing about having cables like these with split housings. You can typically clean and lube your cables very easily. Definitely notice a difference just by doing that. Pop it back in its place. So put a couple drops here on the derailleur as well while we're at it. Anywhere the thing likes to pivot, just give it a drop or two. Beautiful. Oh, that feels good. All right, now we can go through it. Up 1, up 2, up 3. Oh, we definitely got some chatter going on. Down 1. We just jumped down 2. So only go up 1. So take a little bit out of the barrel adjuster up here at the shifter. Drop back down where it's supposed to be. Appears to be shifting well at this point. Our limit screws seem to be set properly. Alright, so it seems to be shifting good. Let's move on to these brake cables now. Just kind of like we did with the shifter. Just go ahead and pop this cable out again. Let's go ahead and loop this portion down too. this cable back into place now that we got it all lubed up. Oh man, that feels amazing. Just by lubing that cable up. Let's do this front one real quick. Just gotta line up the little slot there. Squeeze the brake while pulling back on the housing, and as you let go of the brake lever, the cable shall come out. Alright, let's pop it back in. Wow, that feels really nice. Like a brand new brake. They both feel awesome now. Alright, so we went through and adjusted the shifting, moved up all the cables, which made the brakes also feel like brand new. Now at this point, the only thing I'm going to do is just going to go through it and nut and bolt check everything, make sure everything's tight. Start up here with this handlebars. It's also good while you're doing this to kind of just back them off and crack them loose, just to make sure that they're not seized. Steel bolts and aluminum fasteners, if you don't touch them for a while, sometimes they can seize up on you. Handlebars feel good. Let's go through these cranks next. Make sure those crank arms on nice and tight. Got about 1/8 of a turn out of that. Nice and snug. Cranks are good. I'm obviously going to have to adjust the seat height to my liking once I get it out of the stand. I'm probably going to adjust these handlebars as well, because I don't really like how close the shifter is in on these bars. I have to move it inboard just a little bit, give me a little more thumb room over here. Double check this stem once again. Here's good. Good and tight. Alright, we're all good there. Check your derailleur hanger, make sure it's snug. Make sure your derailleur's tight. Derailleur's good and tight. Cool. Alright, now I did say I was going to do something about these horrible pedals. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, actually. So when you're unthreading pedals, one thing you want to remember is they always unthread opposite of the way that they rotate. So if they rotate this way, that means they unthread this way. So keep that in mind. Ugh. Get rid of these. I couldn't find too much in the pedal department. All I had was these and a pair of yellow Chesters, which I don't know how I feel about a pair of yellow pedals on this black and red bike. No. So I'm just gonna run these for now. Awesome. Alright, so like I said, I'm gonna adjust these handlebars and kind of roll them up. Just don't like the way these things are like pitching down. Yeah, let's go with that. Awesome. I just gotta bring all these levers up. Gotta bring this shifter in. Give myself a little more room in my thumb there. Brake levers are kind of one of those things that you don't really necessarily need to super gorilla tight. If anything, you want to give those just a little bit of leeway. Not that much leeway, but basically just quarter turn tighten them. That way if you find yourself crashing into a tree or you're falling off your bike and your bike hitting the ground, you know, if it hits hard enough, it'll just bend the lever down versus breaking it. There we go. Alright, that feels perfect right there. It feels a lot better on my knees. Yeah, it's amazing how just small little micro adjustments like that can make a bike feel so much better. Yeah, this thing is officially ready to rip. Right now we got it all cleaned up. We finally get to do this. Yeah. Alright, so we got it all cleaned up, got it all tuned up, got it all lubed up, got everything adjusted and fitting right. There's only one thing left to do now. Let's take this thing for a ride. Alright, so here we are on our initial test ride. And so far, so good. You know, getting it to work and shifting the bike stand is one thing, but the real test is when you get it out on the trail. So far, so good. Shifting nice, brakes were good. Thing doesn't skip a beat. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. Let's go see what kind of trouble we can get into with this thing. These couple last steps here are just glare ice. I don't know if I'll be able to do this, you guys. We'll try it. Now that is all ice. I am so glad I didn't just die. All right, you guys, so I brought the bike up to my local park just to give it a quick shakedown, and I gotta say the thing's riding amazing. Shifting good, riding good, brakes work. The brakes don't even squeal, which is nice. Snow conditions aren't exactly ideal for today. I mean, it's more or less just pretty much ice out here, but it ain't gonna stop us from coming out here and having some fun. So anyway, got some more snow coming in the forecast, so that'll give me something to look forward to. But anyway, like I said, initial impression, this thing rides awesome. If anything, it rides just as good as my Specialized Fat Boy that I sold, and that bike cost nearly double what that thing cost. So anyhow, I'm just out here cruising around, and like I said, so far, I'm liking it. Alright guys, so I'm out here cruising this thing around for a couple hours now, and like I said, it is just an overall great riding bike. Feels nice and solid. It's really comfortable actually. Shifts through the gears just fine. Everything works good in that department. Although if I were to upgrade one thing on this bike, it would be to step that cassette up. It's got an 1132 on it now. Now if this thing had an 1142 or an 1146 for that matter, this thing would climb like an absolute goat. Well, other than that, like I said, it's a really good riding bike. I did lower the seat just a tad because one thing I failed to take into consideration when we were tuning it up in the house is, you know, it's a fat bike. If you're riding it on snow, you could be riding it over ice and not even know it. So with that being said, if the bike slips out, you at least want to be able to put your foot down at a moment's notice. And when you got your seat way up, you know, you still got that little bit of room, so it gives the bike plenty of opportunity to just slip right out on you. So like I said, lowered the seat a little bit, just kind of a safety thing at that rate. I'm actually glad we picked this one up, you guys, because now I can actually have some fun this winter. Well, other than that, I think that's going to do it for this one, you guys. If you guys haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do have another channel, but it's been kind of pigeonholed into like automotive content, and bicycles have always been my true passion. So if you guys like bikes too and like this content, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It really helps. But other than that, I think that's going to do it for this one, you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.